And welcome back. And we are moving into our first conversation for this morning. This is an opportunity for us to be able to talk about personal safety, home safety, and things that we can do in being able to mitigate the issues we've been seeing with crime here in the city. And so we have with us Senior Superintendent Howell Gillett, who is the commander of Eastern Division, Region 1. Good morning and welcome.
Thanks for having me, and thanks. Good morning to TV viewers. Yeah. And I'm glad you got Region 1 right.
Yes.
A few months ago, it was, when I came the first time, it was still south side.
Yes, you are right.
But a name change doesn't solve crime, but it does send a different message.
Yeah.
And I always use the analogy of Orange Walk was named Ramotong, and then it was called Sugar City by the Youth Connection Band. And then nobody 20 years or younger knows Orange Walk as Ramotong. So the negative connotation has gone away.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I think that's an interesting perspective to start, but we can use it as a launching pad, I think, in being able to talk about what we are seeing in Belize City, because the crimes don't necessarily have a specific region where people are being targeted now. It happens what is north side, south side. It happens in some of the fringes in Ladyville and some of the suburbs there as well. And so some would say that it's even indiscriminate at this point. I just want to start off with having your perspective on what we are seeing at this time in Belize City.
Well, to put it holistically, crime, especially murders and shootings, are going down rapidly from ever since April of this year. There was a reconstitution or the ministry was retooled. It was changed around, and ever since then we've seen and I believe the focus of policing it was on the murders and shootings, because those were the ones that were rampant in March and before March. So lots of emphasis was placed on stopping the shootings and the murders, and that we're successful at that at this moment. But yes, indeed, there are crimes against properties, and some of it has to do with the precautions that are taken. Because, for example, I want to remind people of this. Some of the things that I will say, to me, they're commonsensical, but we don't practice them because other things overpower us. And the use of electronic devices are one of the number one issue. Because, for example, if you purchase a new flat screen TV, whatever inches, then you post it on Facebook, that's telling, I'm not saying that you have a right to be robbed because you post something, but you make it easier for the criminals. So there are many things we do, and yes, indeed, shootings and murders are going down, but yes, we see an increase in crimes against properties, be it robbery or aggravated burglary. I noticed the news call it home invasion.
Home invasions, yeah.
We have to do better as a people to safeguard ourselves. It's not just to say that criminals could continue to go into this society and do as they please, but we need more information from the public. And simple things like seeing somebody that arose a suspicion in you. You need to report it. You must feel friendly enough to call the police and say there's this person that I've never seen before in our area. Because for a home invasion, as the news put it, there has to be more groundwork than just a simple burglary. A burglary is the person just going to the area and going to any house indiscriminately, but for a home invasion, or as we know it in the law, it's aggravated burglary, there has to be a lot of planning. The person has to be there to see.
To scope out the area.
Yes, for a long period of time. They won't just go into a house like that because the danger that it poses. For a burglary now, they won't, you won't be home. They'll know your routine that you work 8 to 5, so they'll go during the day. But for a home invasion, the person has to be at home at the time of the incident for it to be a home invasion.
One of the things we know about you very clearly, when you came to Belize City, you spoke of wanting to have a different focus in how you would police in your particular area. And the focus is on community policing and on uplifting some of the at-risk people within the area, as well as empowering police officers. And we'll talk a bit about that a bit later on. When we talk about reporting suspicious persons, one of the concerns I always have is, how do you know when you are profiling a person who looks quote unquote out of place, especially when on the other end you're trying to work to uplift them to be able to feel empowered to move around, look for jobs, and to do something better with their lives?
Well, if there's a suspicion because you don't know this person and the person is not known to, because it's good to know your neighborhood, and that's another issue that leads me to tell you this, that oftentimes we don't even know the next door neighbor. So when there is problem, it's very tough to get help. And because we believe we are living in a virtual world, if we get into our homes, and I'm speaking generally, we turn on whatever device, and that's who you are, without any care of what is occurring outside. But there are many tips that I've brought to share with the community to let them feel safer, or to preempt things and prevent further escalation of that type of crime. And it shows that crimes change, the patterns change, and the police has to change along with it. Because we were hell-bent on stopping the shootings, because there were many up to March of this year. As a matter of fact, I could tell you this, at the end of May, we were 22 murders above last year. And at the end of July, we were 9 above last year. So that shows that all the work that we're putting, and it's no one person or one entity causing the crime to go down. The society is behaving differently too. But apart from that, we have the help from the Belize Coast Guard on a daily basis. We have and I would be remiss if I don't mention those names, because they are always in the background. The Belize Defense Force, we need them on a daily basis. But yes, we have operations continuing in the city. And me taking a community-oriented style approach has nothing to do with arrests being made. But I am a firm believer, and many others are following my lead, that we cannot continue to believe that we could arrest our problems away. It's simple as that. I don't need a police officer to be in front of my house for me to become a good citizen. I will be a good citizen whether a police officer is there or not. And we want to create more of those people in the communities, but it has to start. And the cure to crime lies in the work we do with young people. Because yes, we might have lost a 20-year-old who is a shooter, who is a person who is going around shooting people, but we could save the 8 and the 10 and the 12-year-olds. And we must do it, and it must be a concerted effort. It cannot be just the police. And and there are myriads of things, social issues. What we're doing, it's not just the police. There are so many things. I could speak here for 2 hours on some of the issues, but some of them, how could you, and it's not to hammer on anybody, how could you be a single parent and you have 7 kids for different persons?
I'm not going to touch that one for a while.
Yes, I know it's a tough thing, but what we need to do, the health department or the health ministry needs to come on board. We need to do something to help with family planning. Because I'm sure a person doesn't wake up one day and say, I will make 7 kids. But circumstances cause it to happen. But when you bear kids and there's no means of taking care of these kids, then they will go into the street. And that's the bottom line. If we want to solve crime, not only today, we have to do more with young people, with mothers, for us to have a longer lasting peace. We don't want 2 months no shooting. We want years of no shooting. And it has to start with the young people.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because I think more and more we've been having conversations just on the show, and I think there's a greater awareness of the trauma that has affected quite a number of young people, from poverty to exposure to violence to several other social ills. And I hope that it is a wider knowledge that people know that the crime that we see is a manifestation of these issues. But nonetheless, I think it is only fair to think of persons who have been law-abiding citizens who are now becoming victims. And the reason I think home invasions scare us so much, and I can say that on a personal level, is because once you've done everything, once you lock up your home, once you get into what should be your sanctuary, no one expects to be bombarded in the middle of the night by persons who want to take anything from them. And when we hear these stories, it really creates a sense of insecurity. We had the issue when there were more shootings than we're seeing now, and now we have the issue where people are feeling that same sense of fear because of what we're hearing with home invasions.
Yes, well, the fear of crime is always worse than crime itself. Because the fear level of, you cite, before I came to Belize City, there were 2 double murders. I believe 2 ladies, unfortunately, lost their life. And they had a concert at the Civic Center, and it was well attended. But if that had happened in Punta Gorda or Belmopan, I believe that concert wouldn't go as planned. So I'm telling you that the fear level is different according to which region of the country you are, but rightly so, there has to be the decrease of, because citizens cannot continue to live in a life of fear. But these persons who are committing the crimes are sons of mothers, are brothers to sisters. But I'm telling you this to tell you that lots of emphasis over the past 100 years have been placed on young girls going to school. I'm not advocating for it to stop, but there has to be emphasis on young boys going to schools because the crimes are being committed by young boys. And I am pleased to tell you this, that there was a study done recently by a group called ECLAC. It's the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And one of the things coming out of that study is that if a young person is allowed to stay in school up to age 17, the probability of that person becoming a criminal reduces by 50%. But when we go into the street, and I'm telling you first-hand evidence, when we go into the streets, there are so many young boys just smoking drugs, playing cards, nothing meaningful happening. And we are trying, but these guys, you have to understand it too, they don't have skills. They don't have a paper document to say, I will go to this established organization and ask for a job, and I will get it. And that's the problem. An attorney told me, he said, sir, a guy came to me, a young guy, 18 or 19, and he said, sir, I need a job. And he said, no problem. What can you do? Anything I can do. But nobody wants you with anything. And the other thing, I will, before I get into this, we are fighting on one end to be positive, and there are other things that are fighting us to be negative. For example, how could a man maintain a criminal record from 1978 for a crime of theft? I would advocate dearly for there must be an expiration date to criminal record, because if you committed a crime in 1978 and you've not committed any after that, I believe you have changed. That's many, many years ago. So you cannot continue to criminalize you for something that you did in the past. Now, if you're a repeat offender, if you have committed murder, if you've committed rape, those are different offenses, but I believe the ones that could stop you from getting a job. Because how could you say we want to create employment and then there are certain things stymieing the process? The other thing, the PSC, and I don't know how well this would sit with others, but the PSC is a stumbling block. How could you be doing so well in primary school and then come 1 or 2 days, you take 2 examinations, and then you don't do so well and you're stopped from going to school? So there are so many things affecting us that we don't carefully look at. And for us to really solve crime for a long period of time, for it to be lasting peace, well, the Bible says only when the world is taken over by God again, fully, the return of Jesus, then you'll have lasting peace. But we could enjoy more than what we're enjoying if we solve crime as a disease. Take away the obstacles that are affecting young people, take away the things that are causing young people to commit crimes. And then we don't need to. I asked at a seminar that I went recently in the US, I asked, do you ever think about buying back guns from the guys on the street? They said, hell no. We don't do that. The guns could be on the streets, but we need to change the mentality of the young people. They don't need to use the guns. And that's the kind of, because when you buy 10 guns, it's easy to go and get, and you've heard of the stories how people are bringing guns to the country. So we want to change the mindset of young people. It's not okay for you to just pick up a gun and shoot somebody because you cannot resolve a conflict. And that leads me to tell you the great program by the US is so strategic in helping young people in anger management, and those are some of the underlying issues that are causing the shootings and whatever it is. It's not hard for them because they're living with a degree of negativity within themselves. And we have to do more, not only the police, but all entities. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted, because what I hear from you, and it rings true to what we have been seeing in your actions as well. When you were moved from Belmopan, this was what you had adopted in that city and had successfully reduced crime there. Now you come into a different context here in Belize City where there are differing views as to how we should be addressing crime. And while I think that more and more, as I said before, we can have a level of empathy to the challenges that the criminals of today had faced as children, or for those who are still children, there still has to be a balance between reducing the risk of the younger children from following in that life of crime, but also to stymie what is taking place at the moment. And that's where I think I wanted the conversation to go now, just looking at efforts that are being made, and having a realistic perspective. Before we started the show, we were talking about the movement from selling drugs, selling marijuana specifically, to perhaps looking into firearms as a way of a livelihood, and maybe that accounts for some of the issues that we're seeing now. But let's explore that further. Why are we seeing these types of crimes?
Well, I believe I mentioned a part of it. It's a lot of our young people, especially boys who are committing the crimes, are unskilled people. They can't really find, and then apart from can't finding a job because of your skills, you cannot leave the community that you live in. So it's very, very difficult. The jobs would have to be created within that community, and there are many jobs. There are many jobs. People say they are not jobs. They are jobs. As a matter of fact, I was called from the citrus industry to beg to please find people to go down there and work. But our culture, or the culture of generally in Belize City, is not that of anybody who wants to go down to the south to do bananas or oranges. So there are jobs, but it's not the type of jobs that these young people want. And then they don't come, generally they don't come with skills. But there are other underlying issues that would take me a day to explain that are affecting our young people to remain positive.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm troubled. Mr. Gillett, it appears that the police are trying. To me, it looks like you're trying. I don't necessarily find a measure of success with the attempts by the police, but to me, it's like trying to use a spoon to empty the sea. My question is, the things that you've pointed to are all psycho-economic problems. The way young men see themselves, the lack of economic opportunities. Those are not policing issues. Those are political and social issues. Is the police being given too much like the teachers? You know, just dump picnic on there and expect them to learn. And with the police, we just dump our social problems on you guys and expect you guys to create jobs, expect you guys to discipline our kids, expect you guys to give parenting advice.
To mediate.
To mediate. Are we just a failed political and social state, dump it on the police, and the police are not competent to deal with that? Even if they were well-trained and were the best police officers in the world, Sherlock Holmes, and you dump that on them, it's a recipe for failure. Do you feel as though the society is putting too much? And if it's just probably the ego of the police department, they haven't said, hold on, that Minister of Education, or Ministry of Education, that on my thing, Minister of Human Development, this on my thing, society, this is not my thing. My question is, don't you feel you're being given far more than you're being paid for or far more than you're competent as a department to do.
Well, the social part of it, I believe that the police is getting a lot of work in that area. But I will tell you this, and I will be very quick to say this, that when a little guy who is 9 years old doesn't go to school, it seems as a parental problem or a school problem. But when he's 13 now and picks up a gun, it becomes a police problem. So we have to be doing something because it will end up in our laps. There's an old leadership story that says there were some kids coming downstream screaming for help, and all the men from a party went in to try to take them out. And then one of the men came out and others were criticizing him, and he said, no, I will stop what you're doing and I will go to where the kids are coming out, are being put in the water. And it's the same thing with crime. If we don't do something now, some people say, sir, why are you involved in a feeding program? And there are 4 coming up, and I will mention them later. But why are you as a police officer involved in a feeding program? Well, to that person and others who may be thinking the same way, if we don't do something about young people, how could you be worried about the next meal? How could you concentrate and learn anything valuable in the classroom setting if you are troubled with getting the next meal or knowing where the next meal is coming from? So yes, it might not be a police problem at the moment, but a few years from now, it will be a police problem because it's very rough to go through school missing 2 meals, and there are kids who that is occurring too. And it leads to so many different things, too many kids in one home without the proper infrastructure. So we have to do better as a people. It's not to pinpoint any one area within the city that is more trouble than the other areas.
Is it a matter of building a perspective or changing the perception, of the police, that you want the community to feel that you are community workers, as you know?
Well, the main thing in when you're trained, the police must be seen as a friend. If the police is seen as a police officer who just comes in to make an arrest, people won't speak to you. You want to be open, and just like with some of these, like how you call it, home invasion, we could get more information on them. We could get more information on where the guns are, but sometimes the trust level is not there. And the gap has been widening, and I said this before, and I could be guilty of something like a scratch record, but how could you teach your kid at a very early age to hate the police? And people would say, why you say that? When the kid doesn't want to drink a bottle, when the kid doesn't want to do an assignment, when the kid doesn't want to do a chore, and you say, I will call the police, there will be this fear from a very young age. I listened to a little 2-year-old boy saying pow pow and trying to hide from the police. He will be messed up if we don't get close to that child. And we've changed, and I won't call any name, we've changed people with some of what we're doing. Yes, somebody, when I was in Belapan, said, you need to focus more on crime fighting. What is crime fighting? Crime fighting is not arresting people. That's a band-aid solution. That's the last resort. When the young boy at 15 years is putting ammunition in a magazine, we've lost that person. We should have done more even before it had reached that stage. And it's a whole of society approach, but culturally we've changed. Because of the hodgepodge, because of the different people coming into our country, we've lost some of our values from the past. And it's a whole issue. I'm no anthropologist, but I could tell you by a layman's term, 1961 Hurricane Hattie devastated Belize, and people started to move towards the north. And leaving kids behind with grandparents and neighbors.
But those aren't problems that we will solve in.
No, you can't. But we have to be doing. We have to be doing a lot for young people. And I will tell.
Sorry to cut you, but the point I wanted to get at is, we recently had volleyball, to give you an analogy. Yes. Imagine if we had Miss Kwan doing what the top scorer was doing. In a factory, it works well because each person does what they do best. And the police are, in fact, a band-aid solution. They are reactive. Enforcement, by its very nature, everything around policing is about curing something that went wrong. That's what it's designed against. Policymakers are to prevent it and to help to make sure it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, police are your backup If you are not able to protect yourselves and not be able to prevent something and it crosses the line, the police do so. My concern really is just getting everyone to do what they're supposed to do. Because another part of, and my final analogy is this. There's a thing called limited resources. So if I am using some of my resources to do the backpack school, to do the tournaments, to do these things, then more so than being friendly, being competent, I'm not putting my energies towards that. So I'm not able to, a big part of the crime fighting is the criminals knowing that if I do this, the police will catch me and they'll be able to build a case in order to put me in jail. That is the biggest power of the police. Everything else is a velvet glove, which leads to that. And if we're not putting our focuses on getting that structure in place and focusing more on social policing, then we might miss the boat.
Well, that's another way to put it. But you're not a criminal because of something that happened, or some things that happened in your earlier years, your formative years, according to Dr. Herbert Gale. We want to be like Lucky Dube, who said we don't need to build more prisons. Yes, there are those from time immemorial. Didn't Cain kill Abel? So he killed 25% of the population at that time. 4 people and 1 was killed. But I will tell you this, that part of policing will always be there, but it shouldn't be the norm. So you want to create more positive-minded people in the communities and less of those who are criminals, because there are people who are evil and you can't do anything about it. Over years you try with them and that doesn't work. But the law, in the US they tell you, I listened to the guy who just passed away, Senator McCain, and he said in one of his speeches that we cannot continue to legislate to solve crime. Because somebody just reminded me that there are countries where there's a death penalty for drugs and there are still drug traffickers. There are death penalties for murders in the US in certain states and people still are executed. So, but we want to steer people away from that. Even it's a harder work. The easier thing is to outfire, to be called and say there's a murder and solve it. That's the easier way and you look better doing it, but you could have prevented that because a human has lost his life. And as I said, I'm no social worker, I'm no anthropologist, but I could see based on my upbringing, based on what I've seen with young people, we've changed people. I've had kids who have hit their mothers, and we were able to change them by introducing them to the GREAT program, by introducing them as a cadet. And I would be remiss if I don't say Belize City, Rocky Road now has a cadet. Nice. And that was a shooting zone some months ago. And the Mayflower, I won't call it Ghost Town because that doesn't sound well, but Mayflower area now has a cadet with young people. So we want to remove obstacles. We went, Mr. Williams and I, and the entire Ministry of National Security and that of Human Development went to New Orleans recently, and they have a program called Cure Violence. It's treating crime as a disease. And I believe very soon that will be implemented across the police forces within Belize. So it has to be where we do something before you commit a crime. If we appear to be like the fire engine where you're called to out a fire, then we're not doing all that we're supposed to do.
No, I'm glad you brought up that specific program because it was interesting, the perspectives that we've heard so far from it, from the Minister of Human Development and from Mr. Williams himself, they've been very different. But it takes me back to a conversation we've had here with a criminologist from Gillett. And she spoke of a lack of coordination between the bodies that address crime, from human development to the police department to the prison. And it is, I think, an interesting take, and I want to bring it out to you because it seems that, and I hear what Kevin is saying, you know, I am sure people are watching right now and saying this is such a soft approach, we just want to feel safe in our homes. I'm sure there are people who are saying that.
But we've tried that. I have to rebut that because Mr. Tablada tried Operation whatever in his time. Mr. Jeffries tried many operations. If we were successful at solving crime through arrest alone, would have eradicated crime in Belize. because over 3,000 people are arrested on an annual basis, and that hasn't done the trick. So there has to be something else to it. And if you are trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, then something is flawed.
And moving, I think one of the issues that looking at the cohesion that needs to take place, the Ministry of Human Development, the police department, and even the prison system, has there ever been an effort to kind of sit together and come up with a strategy and say, okay, you take this part, we'll handle this part, and when and if they go to prison, this is what we can do with them or need to do with them to reform them, that they don't come back into this cycle again?
Well, I'd be the first to tell you that there could be better collaboration. But indeed, there's a national security strategy, which includes all of the stakeholders. But I believe on a day-to-day basis, we need to coordinate better. And I believe all the factions, all the entities know that we need to do better if we're to be completely successful in what we're endeavoring to achieve.
One of those coordinating bodies was abolished. The Crime Control Council was dismantled under the late attorney, Mr. Michael Young, who was doing an excellent job, that had stakeholders from the business community, the NGO community, and they were focused on it, and that was in addition to the National Security Council. We had more crimes, and for some reason we washed it away. Don't you think that that would assist with some of the coordinating issues that we have?
Well, the last that I heard of it was that they're trying to put back some members together and bring back the Crime Control Council. So I don't have the up-to-date information in it, but it's something that I could find out readily after we're finished from the show and send a text so that you could update the. And if something works, then we will try it. But I want to.
And that was going to be my next question, because we hear of your approach, and it's very clear where your approach is. You are on preventing another generation of criminals from being formed.
Yes, because when we're on our retirement wheelchairs, I don't want to hear Belize City 10 years from now is out of control again, because then that would be an indictment on my time leading the region one side of Belize City. Yeah. So we have to be doing all we can to prevent these young people from.
Take a heavy load there, Brother Howell. That's not only you, it's a lot of other people.
Yes,
and
but
that's the point.
The creation of awareness, I will tell you. We started a thing in Belmopan called Youth Engaged in Agriculture with the Ministry of Agriculture. We started it in Belmopan. When I came to Belize City, the CEO, Mr. Alpucha, and I always have to give him praise because he's such a hands-on guy. He said, sir, we will take it to Belize City with you. And this year we took 80 Belize City kids. Yes, there are problems going every day. We have to be waiting because they wake up late. It's a different environment from that of a different culture from Belmopan, but we were successful. And some of these young people, I am telling you, of the 425 kids that we interacted, either through the great program, the cadet, the football teams in Belmopan, none has ever committed any egregious or flagrant act against the laws of Belize. And that tells you a story we need to remember. But it's not like what you said, there has to be greater collaboration amongst all the stakeholders. It cannot only be the police, but if we are seen to be doing something, I will tell you, others will follow. Because this year, first it used to be the police and the Ministry of Agriculture. This year, we had the involvement of the Ministry of Education. They helped us greatly this year. So, and it's moving now because there's this discussion that it should be taken to other districts. Yeah. And there are a number of things you could learn from farming. One is that you must have patience because you water the plant every day, but yet it only bears at a certain time. So you have to be able to wait for certain things, and then you're getting back to the soil. But okay. Sorry,
what I was going to get at was talking about some of the successes, and obviously you have outlined them there in what you have seen with the young people that you've been working with in Belize City, what you hear from them, what transformations you have seen or heard that makes you feel that the efforts you made are successful and worth continuing to pursue.
Well, one that readily comes to mind is that Mayflower was an area that the police was driven out. You could remember that. And a few weeks after we were able to go in, and those same people were cooking for us when we were doing a cleanup campaign in the area. So it is working. Now we could go in there at any time because the young people, they know us by name now. how we go in there often. But I want to share, if it's okay, I want to share some of the tips for keeping safe against
yes.
aggravated burglary, as you call it, home invasion. Because what the media puts on the news will be the keywords people will be referring to things. So
well, our responsibility is to make it into information that people understand. And aggravated burglary isn't necessarily everyday language.
Yes.
It's police language.
Yeah, I thought
not
it came
ours.
I thought it came from a police program. I don't want to call it a specific name, but I can remember it being the buzzword that repeats. And I actually think it's more intrusive to say a home invasion is a little bit more intrusive than to say a burglary. A burglary is a bit more third party. Home invasion is an, you know,
Invasion.
it's almost terrorist-like.
Yeah.
yes, well, the difference is that
But
people are
what's
at
in a
home
name?
and the other one, people are not at home.
Yeah.
But some of the things that you could, and it's tough to tell a man who is working on the street to get a camera system, but that is one of the ways that we've been able to, and it's reactive. Some people on Albert Street were hell-bent on not putting cameras because they say you're solving crime after the fact.
Yeah.
But it is preventive in a way too, because it's a deterrent.
Absolutely.
So they may take a second guess before they target
yes,
your
but you
home.
can't compromise, even if it's a camera that is not working. Put up the signage that camera in use or something like that. The criminal won't know unless he has inside information. And what we've seen in some of the home invasions, aggravated burglary, is that there is inside collusion. So we have to choose who we use as our helpers within the
Gardeners,
house. Yes, we have to be able to do that. You have to be able to choose the right people, because in some of the cases we've seen that invest in a good dog to put in the yard.
Can you go back just a little? I know the police have been putting up cameras throughout the city. I know there's one at the corner of LaCroix Boulevard and Holy Manuel Street.
Yes, yes.
And that will go a long way. I don't care what people say. I can't see how...
A good example is the one at Rocky Road.
Yeah.
That has helped a lot.
Absolutely.
Yes. So you have to create the illusion that somebody is at home all the time. And then that could be done by staggering the time when the TV comes on by itself. So we need to do that. As I said earlier, aggravated burglary or home invasion needs a lot of planning. It's different from a regular burglary.
Yeah.
The burglar would go in during the day when you're not there. But the home invasion, it has to be, they will choose when only a woman is at home and the man is away. And we could do better, like things like parking of the vehicle. If your husband drives a vehicle, you drive one, and then when your husband goes to another district or out of the country, the vehicle is not home. That tells a story. People readily read into that. So we have to be thinking about some of the things that we do to ourselves. The other thing, people put the biggest flat screen TV box on the street side waiting for the truck, just for others to see. We have to harden our targets. And one of the ways is to wait until the day when the truck is coming. Or just a few moments before the truck comes so that people don't see what you have. As I said earlier, know your neighborhood. Please mark your homes in large numbers, because that's a problem sometimes for the police to find number 35 Albert Street, because they're so small. And then remember,
so if you're reporting a crime and they need to come immediately.
Exactly, because sometimes the only chance you have is to say 35 Albert Street, I need police immediately.
Wow.
And then the police has to be able to find it. So we could do better with doing that. Use curtains on glass windows. We must do that, because you don't want people to be seeing all the expensive items you have inside your house. Don't exhibit your wealth, meaning wearing your biggest chain and showing people that I have.
Or in this case, your gun, which is one of the targets as well.
That's another thing. And then many times when guns are stolen, and the police is working, in the month of July, we took off 17 guns, but I believe more than that were stolen. We have to do more as gun owners or carriers. No social media posts about
Being out.
where you're going. I'm heading to PG or heading to 19th in Dangriga. If you're going, enjoy it, and when you're done, after the day's event and you come back home, then you could post it, had a great time in Dangriga. I do it all the time. When I travel out of the country, the day that I return, then I will say, it was great in Panama.
Yeah.
And
It's not the criminals winning though. They're changing the way I live. I work hard, and I'm about to enjoy myself with my family, and I'm just constraining myself when there must be a middle ground to not doing any of these things.
You can't circumvent personal security. You should never ever, at any expense, you should go. Your security is paramount. Is of paramount importance. People always say, and it's true, a life worth more than any valuable in your home. And the other thing I want to tell people: don't fight back with a criminal. The person is just, yes, it might be something that is a memorabilia, something that you got from a family member, but that could be replaced at some point. Yeah. So don't fight back with a criminal. Yes, if you want it, take it.
Yeah. So
create neighborhood watch groups. That's important. We've seen that the areas that have neighborhood watch groups, it's different from, because the criminals know. And signage plays a role, a mental role. When there's a sign that says this community is guarded by a certain neighborhood watch group, people would think twice. Even in Crook's report, the Howell Crook's report said that, and it's true. Yeah. And even in your homes, cameras in circulation or whatever it is, words you want to use, be aware, or dogs bite. They used to have a sign that says dogs
biting dogs.
Biting dogs, sorry. Yes. So if we have those signs, people would think twice. People, I will tell you, people are scared of snakes and dogs. Regardless
so part of your security measure is giving the illusion of being additionally secured.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we spoke of dogs, cameras, leaving lights and TV on, not displaying what you own, and also being smart about how you post on social media.
And one of the key ones, because some of the aggravated burglaries that we've seen, there's no forced entry. So that tells you a story. Either your key was copied, and somebody reminded me before coming here, people like to place, and it's widespread, people like to place a spare key under the mat at the door or in a flower spot, and the criminals know that. So they will search in those places when they go to your homes.
Or they may give it to a worker who's coming in.
Yes, of course. So we have to, and the other thing, one of the recent ones, it shows that the area was overgrown. Yeah. We need to clear the shrubs. We need to clear the area so that you could see well, and have motion detectors, lights. You need that, because when that comes on, that in itself causes panic in the criminal.
You know, Mr. Gillett, one of the things in terms of the security cameras, I know on my street in particular, about almost all the neighbors have, and what has helped is we've coordinated so that we pick up somebody from the top of the street to the end of the street. So we've not only looked at our yard, we've been able to overlap the cameras. So if anybody passes there, we can pick them up from the top all the way to the bottom.
That's very good. And if the criminals know that, they won't trouble that area. That area will be a taboo area. It'll be a, they won't go into that area as much as they would go into an area that is unsecured. Because when the criminal goes to an area, he wants to do his job in the quickest time. Is to be undetected. That's the nature of criminals.
But we have seen where there have been burglaries with cameras, especially in businesses.
Yes, and then they steal the DVR.
Okay.
But there are criminals who don't think because of the quickness of it, and they have no experience in doing what they're doing. Yeah. But we see young people are being used by the more senior criminals to commit certain crimes. Because the man who is on, I won't say which street, but is on the street selling drugs, you'd never get the leader of that gang to be selling drugs. You will have 10 grams or lower. But the little guy who is 13, 15, 16, those are the ones who will possess the guns.
You know, the other thing that comes to my mind as we're rushing through is overgrown lots. A lot of times when, you know, they steal these items, they don't go far to stash it, you know.
Yes, we found that recently, that the items were right in the next yard that wasn't clean. But we do our part, and Colby is very helpful to us. We come all the time, and you see it on the news. We clear areas that need to be clear. Some people say, sir, that's not your job, it's another entity. Well, while we debate who is the entity, then crime is going up, then the police will take the blame.
Can I ask what happens if, let's say, for example, you go to the city council and say, Mr. Mayor, we have these 10 lots, the zone beat levels officers, whatever they're called now, community officers, I've seen 10 lots in this area. We've been seeing 4 guns stashed in this area and 5 cars abandoned. Please take these off the street. Do they not respond?
Yes, they respond, but with the rainy season, the lots grow fast.
Yeah.
And we do our part, the city council does its part.
And I think the city council has like a warning system too.
Yes,
that they have to tell the homeowner and...
So they can be proactive.
Yes, but there are too many. I was told, and I don't have I don't know if this is the correct statistics, but I am told that there are around 3,000 empty lots throughout the city. And they need constant cleaning because the criminals like that. We were cleaning an area in Genosha when there was this shooting, and we saw that the shooter went into a bushy lot and fired at the home of another person. And the guy from the other side, sir, we don't need this lot to be clean. We need that to be kept bushy.
Wow.
So we have to have the police security there with the inmates.
So if you have an overgrown lot in your area, call city council, because it is their responsibility first.
Yes, yeah.
And then if that, they can contact the police and see if
yes, when we see it as a police as a crime problem, and I always, prevention is better than cure. That's an old saying even before my time. And if we clean a lot before somebody use it for something else, then we've maybe prevented a crime or two. But I want to quickly, in 2 minutes, to say some of the things that we've done in recent times. Yeah. We've created jobs for the summer for young people, and some of them are very happy. We've taught 50 persons, young people, how to swim through the efforts of the, with the support from the Belize Coast Guard. We've trained 17 young people to become self-employed in trimming, and we've given out machines to the top 5. And these young people are moving headlong into creating their own barbershop. We've had the farming in school program, which will come, I alluded to it a bit earlier, but very shortly. As a matter of fact, it's almost to the stage where we'll have an opening. 4 schools on our side of the city will benefit, and that will feed the feeding program. It's not just farming, but it will feed the kids. Will go this Wednesday, tomorrow, to the Supreme Court. First time since this Chief Justice has taken over. And I believe an attorney, I don't know if it's you, but...
Yes, Justice Young did call me and ask me.
Yes, so
I will be there.
We will show, it's not to scare young people, but to show them what could befall them if they keep on a trajectory of crime. And that in itself, and there's a big thing, I don't want to spill all the beans to say what all the Supreme Court is doing, but I'm very pleased with what the Chief Justice and Justice Young are doing to help young people. Recently, we've given out some food baskets so the neediest of the needy. The Youth Engaged in Agriculture program. Last week we gave out a weed eater to 10 young men who want to farm a cooperative. They don't have any skills in terms of knowing how to work at an office, but they're going to create their own jobs. As a matter of fact, the same evening they already cut 2 yards. We've gotten 500 school bags for young people, and it comes with the basic items within the bags, and we're helping a number of people. As a matter of fact, you can't have sufficient time. The cadets, I've mentioned that. The kids to the summer program in Corozal, and those 25 kids were so fortunate, all of them are getting scholarship up to 6th form.
Wow.
Nice.
It's not just the primary school that they're attending now, so that one was very, very good, and we intend to do this every year to help them.
I know that there's quite a lot that you've done, but in the interest of time, we do have to wrap up the segment.
And you have reason to come back.
And exactly. And, you know, I think that it is important for us to have this conversation where we can talk about things that we can do, but also understanding that there are efforts taking place to stop, as I said before, another generation from following the same path. Thank you for coming in this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of the Belize National Teachers Union. So stay tuned.